You do things like tithing, and you do it for several years, and you wonder if it's ever doing any good. You know that God's blessing you. You know that He's taking care of you. You know that He's meeting your needs. But in the back of your mind, you always kind of wonder. And what really sealed it for us on tithing and God taking care of us happened back in 1998. And at that time, I was working for a company in Kansas City as a buyer. I had been in the workforce, and we'd been married for 18 years. And I got a new boss, and the new boss called me in one day, and he asked me to, and I was a power tool buyer for a major home improvement retailer at the time, who's no longer in business now. And my new boss called me in, and he said, John, he said, I want you to call vendor A and tell them that vendor B gave you $50,000 to advertise with, and that vendor A has to match it. Otherwise, we're not doing any business with them. So I said to my boss, I said, well, Tim, I can't do that because vendor B did not give me that money. It would not be telling the truth. So Tim looked at me and he said, you don't like the way I negotiate, do you? And I said, Tim, I don't care how you negotiate, but I've been in the business for 18 years and I just won't do that. I went in the next day and resigned. I gave him a 4-week notice, resigned without having a job or without knowing what I was going to do because I felt like my time here is done. I took a pay decrease of $90,000 a year. During that time period, if you look at the fact that we just kept right on tithing because we felt like that's what God wanted us to do, and we really felt like any paycheck God gave me or any small job that God gave me actually came from God.
This was at a time period when the boys were very pivotal in their life. They were 16 and 13, so they really were old enough to understand the impact of John's job change and the financial impact towards our family. We were never lacking. We were always, all our needs were being met. And they saw that God it wasn't just somewhere out there, it was real life, that God does care about your real life family. Biggest impact in our son's spiritual life is during this time frame.
We never missed a house payment. Mm-hmm. We ended up getting our cars paid for, but we never missed a house payment. We never went hungry. We always paid the utility bills on time, and we came out of it with great credit ratings. God provided another job for me. He provided the job for me with Lowe's in the fall of 2000. But it took several years after that to get my income level back up. Faith is a tough thing because it's one thing to have faith in God. It's one thing to go through life and have your daily devotions, and it's one thing to pray and ask God to be with you. And it's something else to write that check out. There's just something about giving something tangible that's tough to do and tough to wrap your mind around. Pastor Bobby before has said, and I'm sure I'm quoting him incorrectly or paraphrasing it, but he said, hey, test God. Try tithing and testing and see what happens. And sometimes when you do the testing, you're not going to necessarily know the answer right away. But I really feel deeply that by us tithing, since we've been married the last 31 years, that God has looked out for us. And yeah, there's been some tough times, but we've always pulled through it. And you know what? It's been a good life.
You're never promised a rose garden, that everything's going to be perfect and rosy, but He's there to carry you through. And that's the most important thing, is that by us tithing, we're being faithful to God. But if what we do with our tithe, and just if one person gets saved from that, if that money, that's one person's eternal life. What's the cost of that eternal life? And I just know God is faithful. He's faithful.
It's proved itself.
He's proved it to us, our family.
Yep.